better than I deserve. What's up?
Well, I was kind of wanted to ask the question of maybe what would you do if you were in the situation that I'm in. I have accumulated some cash over the years in our savings account, and I'm trying just to find a safe way to invest it, but that where I'm getting better returns than what I'm seeing in like CDs right now. I'm very, very conservative when it comes to money, and through this process, I've stumbled across like triple net leases, where say in Orlando or you buy a restaurant chain and they lease it back immediately after the sale for, say, a 7% return, through the rents. Is that something that you would recommend? Is that a safe way to put money where hopefully the real estate appreciates and you're getting this the annual rent from it?
Well, you're just buying a piece of commercial real estate. You have an A tenant, and so a AAA tenant, and so you're making what we call a credit tenant in the real estate world, and so they are not willing to pay much of a cap rate. It's called the capitalization rate, which is what you're actually making on the property. What you're talking about is a 7% cap rate is how this thing's capped out, and so you're just buying real estate with a super high quality tenant with a low rent. That's all it is.
So
if you spent the same amount of money on
$2 million, is that?
I'm sorry?
Is that better? I'm still looking at like $2 million to invest.
Okay,
so
if you bought another $2 million
savings account.
If you bought another $2 million property that didn't have a AAA tenant in it, but that you could attract good quality tenants to that pay, you might make a 10 cap rate.
I'm looking also at investing as little time as possible because I own a business, and so I'm doing that full time. And I'm looking for something better than a CD, but something where I invest about that much time.
Then the cap rate would be fine. I mean, the AAA tenant, credit tenant situation would be fine. I have never bought one of those properties personally. I've attempted to a few times, but I just demand more of a rate of return. But I own a lot of real estate, and so I own a property management firm that my son-in-law runs for us as a part of the deal, right? So, I'm set up that way where you're not. And in your case, with your risk aversion and you're not wanting to have any hassle factor, a triple net, AAA credit tenant means that you're doing no maintenance. You're not even paying the taxes or insurance. They're paying them directly, and they send you proof of payment. All they do is send you the rent. That's it. And you own the building, and it appreciates. Now, usually these are long-term leases, and so the downside is the building is not going to appreciate as much as other real estate like it because it is hampered by this lower rate of return lease. It is also enhanced by this lower rate of return lease if the buyer is you, But that you're the type of buyer, and so where a piece of real estate goes up in value, that lease owns that property. So if they have a long-term 20-year lease on it, if the piece of property across the street sells for triple, your value doesn't go up because that lease has got that thing encumbered for 20 years. You follow me? Your value only goes up if your tenant goes out, and then whatever market goes in. Now, the downside is you could lease to Sears or Toys R Us.
Or Circuit City.
Circuit City, yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, were all credit tenants at one time. And they were all high, low cap rate type tenants and would have been considered that. And I got a Toys R Us sitting about 300 yards from where I'm sitting right now. I don't own it, but I mean, it's a building sitting over there empty. And that landlord now has a piece of property that is no longer encumbered by the lease.
Right.
So,
is there something else that I'm not aware of where I could put this money where I could get some use of it?
No, I think this is really, really good for you. I think you're going to like this. If you want to, if you don't want to put it all in one property, I wouldn't. I'd probably just try this. Pick you up, if you got $2 million to play with, pick you up a $1 million deal. And then the next time you do it, you might crank it up. Another notch up for you in risk would be a traditional triple net lease, but not a credit tenant. And where you'll find that is a really, probably a full point or two up on your cap rate. In other words, you might make 9 instead of 7, would be a good warehouse deal. A lot of warehouses are triple net. The tenant takes care of everything and sends you a check, but the tenant may not be a household name that is a restaurant chain or Walgreens or a CVS or something like that, right? Which just about all of those deals are. I looked at one around the corner here. It was Pier 1 Imports was a triple net, or a credit tenant with a triple net. I looked at a while back, about 5 years ago, I guess I looked at that deal. But anyway, that you can move up by in cap rate and a slight amount in hassle with a warehouse scenario, and that might be something to play with as your next purchase. But I think this is a fine purchase for you. Another one that people do, it's even a lower cap rate, is like a post office, because your tenant is the ultimate credit tenant. It's the U.S. government. And so when you have a federal government as the federal government as your tenant, and you did a build-to-suit leaseback with a post office deal, your cap rate may be down even lower. It might be down at 5 or 4 and some change right now. But it's almost like buying T-bonds at that point, or T-bills, because, again, there's zero risk of bankruptcy. Well, virtually zero risk of bankruptcy. So something to play with. It's interesting. Be sure to actually look at the balance sheet if it's a publicly traded credit tenant, and look at read up on them. Read the what people are saying bad about them, how much debt they're carrying, what cash position they're in, and those kinds of things. What's happening with their cash flows and their profit margins and their trends and their stock price, and just you don't have to do a detailed thing. You don't have to have a master's degree in finance, but just do some reading and understand, get a feel for how strong this credit tenant is, because there's an array of tenants that would be considered credit tenants. In other words, you would want to smell that Toys R Us was deeply in debt. And if you had been pitched Toys R Us before it made the news as being broke, or before they filed bankruptcy the first time, then you'd go in and you'd say, oh my gosh, these people got a lot of debt. They got a lot of debt. They got no cash. This could be a problem.